Hello, hello, hello. I mentioned this in coffee time. Nobody watches that though. But it came to pass for those. You've probably read the headline. But yeah, Russia, the Russians asked Roger Waters to speak at the UN. It's true. Yeah, Moscow's first deputy permanent representative asked Roger Waters to come and talk about the Russia invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, Dmitry Polyansky wrote on his Telegram channel that the British artist was to be asked as a speaker at the UN Security Council meeting on the prospects for a peaceful resolution of the Ukrainian crisis in the context of a growing Western arms shipment to the country. Again, this has been reported. It's been reported everywhere. There you go. And it came to pass. It actually happened. It really did happen. Roger Waters did turn up. He actually, he spoke at the United Nations Security Council, and it's been reported that his address there was largely anti-war. Yeah. He condemned the for-profit military-industrial complex and stressed the devastating toll of war both on people and the environment. He went on, again, according to the reports, again, it's the Rolling Stone that's the only outlet at the moment that's actually reported it. But they say he did eventually get around to the ongoing war and condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine as illegal, but also said it was not unprovoked. He added, "So I also condemn the provocateurs in the strongest possible terms. That's out of the way." Now this is interesting because this is a lot more subdued, isn't it? This is a lot more, withdrawn than he usually is. Because again, when he's up amongst the big boys, he had to temper his language, especially with what Polly Sampson's been saying. But yeah, it's reported here. He said elsewhere in his address, Waters made some linguistic choices that arguably reflect a pro-Russian bent, like referring to the arming of the Kiev regime by third parties. He also spoke at one point about the possibility of peace in the Ukraine. Emphasis added. The Ukrainian government has long disapproved of calling it the country the Ukraine as opposed to just Ukraine. And you should say Ukraine, not the Ukraine, because that's how the country was referred to in the Soviet era. You see, you have to be very careful what you name things. It's like it was Kiev was the Russian name of it, and it's Kiev. I always bend the pronunciation. It's Kiev. That's the Ukraine pronunciation of it. But yeah, but despite this, he did seem to, take a more anti-war footing. He says he's a voice for the voiceless millions. He added, "Thank you for hearing us today. We are men who do not share in the profits of the war industry. We do not willingly raise our sons and daughters to provide fodder for your cannons. In our opinion, the only sensible course of action today is to call for immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. No ifs, no buts, and no ands. How about a total withdrawal of Russian troops? And then you'll get your ceasefire. Not one more Ukrainian or Russian life is to be spent. They are all precious in our eyes." But yeah, he's a lot more tempered in his language, because we know he's been very, very outspoken, and talks about the justification of the illegal invasion. Again, it's all rather. Again, he's very pro-Russian, but yeah, I don't think it's going to change anything. Because what he should have done is demand that Russia withdraws completely. Russia withdraws totally and utterly. Then Russia pays for the repairs and for all the damage it's done, then pays compensation to everyone that's been killed because it was an unnecessary conflict, and then they can talk about the regions that they argue over. Then they can get around the table and maybe go for a diplomatic way of solving that problem. But it's never going to happen, because that's not what Putin wanted. That's not what Putin wanted at all. And again, that's what Roger Waters doesn't want that either. You know, he wants Russia to be the victors, even though he says he's anti-war. You know, he's a contradictory, hypocritical character. He really is, because there is one solution to the war, and that is total and utter withdrawal by the Russians. You know, it wasn't the Ukraine forces that invaded Russia. You know, people again, Ukraine were sceptical of a Russian invasion until it happened, because they've been threatened with invasion for, since for about 6 or 7 years. So yeah, so there is. It really did happen. Roger Waters spoke at the United Nations Security Council on the request of the Russians, I might add. On the request of the Russians. He's a Russian agent. He's a Russian tool. He is Putin's puppet. They asked him to go there. You know. Now, Zelensky needs to get David Gilmour up. Can you imagine that? Zelensky says, well, my mate Dave's going to play a blistering guitar solo that's going to make Putin weep and instantly withdraw. It's quite bizarre. We live in very strange times. We live in strange, bizarre, utterly weird times, and you can see why that spat has happened. It's almost like Sampson and Gilmour got the tip off that this was going to happen. And I think that's why they posted their little, that's why they posted their little thing on Twitter the other day. It was to preempt this. It was to make people aware of who and what Roger Waters really is. You know, he's not some peace broker. He's not some peace broker, is he? He's not. He's not. He talks in very divisive language. It's the same with Israel and Palestine. If he wanted peace, he'd try and aim for a conciliation. But no, it's not conciliatory here at all. It's one force beating another force, and it's the Russians beating Zelensky's Ukraine. And, well, that's it. We live in strange times when the Russians, the invading force, call on Roger Waters to speak in their defence in order to end a war that they can't end themselves because they're totally ill-equipped. Remember, in last February, because we're coming up to a year of this, they said it'd all be over in a fortnight, didn't they? But they underestimated Ukraine and their forces. And Roger's picked the wrong side. He's picked the wrong side. So yeah, it's a weird one. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think Roger Waters is really, Mr. Peace? Do you think he really is? Or do you think he's a Russian agent? Do you think that Putin's got him on speed dial? And how do you think this is going to help if he does try and take Sampson to court for defamation? It really does look like he really is a pro-Putin agent now, doesn't it? What a weird, wonderful time we live in. Is this going to inspire you to buy the inflated 50th anniversary Dark Side of the Moon box set? Yeah, does it make you feel proud to be a Pink Floyd fan? Please leave your comments and insults in the comments box below. And that's it. My name's been Darren Locke. I've been talking about Roger Waters at the UN Security Council, saying that the Ukraine invasion was not unprovoked. Only him and the tinfoil hat wearing loons believed that. And that's it. There's no more thing left to say. By now you know what that is. And that is ta-ta.